Yes, people tends talks back again. How Clearlake ruined Chelsea Football Club. I've been wanting to do this for a while, to go through, even for myself, to just go through and flashback, start to beginning. At the moment, there's a lot of a BlueCo slash Clearlake out brigade. A lot of people are acknowledging the fact that these guys have kind of drag. What's the word, fam? What's the word, blood? They've drug us through the mud. That's the word. They've drug us through the mud, and we're in the bin, fam. Yeah, it's peak, fam. Like, every week, bro, we just get it. There's something. There's something going on. There's some sort of bad link, or there's some directors doing something, or some player wants to leave. Or it's been a mad ride under Clear Lake so far, and I wanted to go to the beginning, to the end, and I want to look to the future as well, and I want to reflect and maybe look at what they can do better, and what they've done wrong, what they've done right. The overall picture is, yeah, they've come under scrutiny for financial dealings and all these kind of a lot of the main thing is the 1 to 2 billion pounds, but I think it's now 1.5 billion plus spent, and a lot of money, a lot of expenditure, a lot of trading, a lot of ins and outs, pause, and Durex FC, fam, in and out, in and out, in and out, blood, in and out. It's like Messi, fam, in out, like that. Pendulum FC. But the thing is, we haven't got much of a return for our investment, and that's the thing that is the issue with Clear Lake. With a lot of we've got the Conference League and the World Club Cup in what, 3 years, 4 years, 4 years, not much, And there's directors, there's manager sackings, there's lots of upheaval. Not a stable football club under this ownership. And when they first came in, obviously everyone knows the circumstances. Roman Abramovich was forced to sell the club in circumstances that still don't feel right to me to this day. I believe that Roman Abramovich was an owner that obviously did a lot for us, but at the time that I was getting quite fed up of them at that time anyway, because Roman and Marina, Roman wasn't really running the club or much involvement in the club. We look back at the last maybe 10 years of Marina. Okay, post 16, 17, you get Conte in, we assembled a team that was good enough to win the league, which it did. And in the summer, we had an absolutely abhorrent summer, terrible summer. Like a Bakayoko, you go and bring Drinkwater, Bakayoko. You get rid of Diego Costa, you bring in Morata, who was a good signing at the time, but it didn't work out to in a way that we wanted it to. So the decline started from there. Conte fell out and Conte left. And then there was Sarri. The recruitment again, the players that we had, Higuain and all these guys, people romanticize the Roman era, and it was better than this, but there were still flaws with it to the point where it could have been improved on. And that's what I was hoping this ownership was going to do. And that's why when he left, I was unhappy about the fact that it was causing upheaval in the football club, and it was causing issues and stuff like that. And players had to, Rudiger and Christensen, maybe they stay. Maybe they stay if there was directors in place and there was an stable ownership in place where they could say, this is the contract, stay. I honestly think if he stayed a couple more weeks, maybe if that ownership thing didn't happen, they could have come to an agreement. But if you're Rudiger and you're like, Real Madrid are interested, or this football club that's in the mud right now because of what's going on with ownership, you're going to go elsewhere, innit? And that summer, we had a decent little clear out, just in the bin. That's where we are, in the bin. But that kind of forced them out because of the whole Russia-Ukraine war thing. I don't know if I can mention that on YouTube. It's not like I'm going to get demonetized. I don't know peace from this, but I might blur that out. But the war, the war that caused this to happen. And yeah, they had to leave. Forced and unprecedented, the most unprecedented sale of a football club that we've ever seen, and that's what we had to deal with. And yeah, these guys come in at the time when they came in. I think a lot of people were kind of relieved. We weren't too. Bowley was one of the first names to come out, the Bowley consortium, and we were quite against it at the time. But then other names came in, and obviously our main one was we wanted Saudi. I think it was, I don't remember what the consortium was called, but it was Saudi that was, and I remember we were so gassed about the idea of Saudi coming in. But then there was Ricketts, the whole racist family. Then there was a one with Lewis Hamilton and some English guy. There was Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos. So a lot of the other consortiums that started to get involved because it was one of the, it wasn't a bargain, but it was one of the opportunities, a business opportunity of a lifetime to get a football club like that in the circumstance that it was. And yeah, we dreamed about Saudi and all these kind of things. Oil part 2, you get me, but it didn't happen, and I feel like we kind of settled for Todd and his thing. We didn't really like him in the beginning, but I think after the other candidates kind of came through, we were like, okay, Todd, cool, let's do a thing. And Todd came in and kind of talked a decent game, and we were like, let's see in it. American owners are not always the best and that kind of thing, and people like to get on American owners. But it went out. It went Anton Bowley and his consortium, Clearlake Capital, Jose Feliciano, Hansburg Wyss. All these guys came in and they were part of Chelsea Football Club and they owned Chelsea Football Club and they still do to this day. So that's how it started. And the overall strategy and stuff for the notes that I've written here, we'll talk about that in a second. We'll make the overall point in a second, but obviously let's go through the windows. Obviously that is what you're judged on. Quickly before that, let's talk about off the pitch, just in general. Over the years, there's been dodgy dealings about they had to change rules of amortization on contracts and all these kind of we kind of made this trend of, you know, in football. I didn't even know in football that you could do more than 5 years. Because on Football Manager and FIFA, you can only give people 5 years plus 1 year option. Kalidou Koulibaly came in at the time. Obviously, we were looking for a centre back because obviously Rudiger Christensen had left. We were linked with Ake, which was, I think, it seems very Tuchel-led, and some people were a bit iffy about that. You know, again, that's part of the City kind of exodus that was looking to take place at that time. Matthijs de Ligt was on the market, or Matthijs de Ligt, however you say, I think it's de Ligt, yeah, some Dutch thing, but obviously we didn't get him. He went to Bayern, he left Juventus, and I was a big fan of Matthijs de Ligt, man. I really wanted him. I still am a big fan of him. I really thought he was going to be good for us, and I thought we could have got him, but I think we kind of just backed out, and it was weird. And then obviously the year before we missed out on Koundé. I was wondering at the time, why are we not going for Koundé? Koundé wanted to come. Ake, de Ligt, I was like, why are we not going for Koundé? And we eventually tried to go for Koundé later on in the window. And this was the Barca summer. Yeah, this is the Barca summer. We'll get onto that in a minute. In fact, yeah, we'll leave that. Obviously, Koundé, we're touching it. Yeah, Koundé was there, and we got Koulibaly in the end, and then Wesley Fofana, £75 million. I think it's actually best we wait until after the Barca section because obviously that plays a part into why we spent that money on him. Cucurella at the time, wanted by Man City, we go and swoop in and we go and get him. Started a bit of a theme under Bowley. He's since admitted that he pretty much signed Cucurella just because Man City wanted him. Madness. But Cucurella was a good signing because he was a very good player. I really wanted him. He's quality. Up till now, he's quality. He didn't have the best start at times. Maybe he had the good starting season, but the season after that, we weren't really having him, and people were like, "Yeah, you can get rid of this, bruh." But yeah, onto the Barca thing. Attackers. Well, before it was Sterling and all this, Dembele was a free transfer, and we were like, "Usman, we can go get him." We were linked to him. Some ITKs were linking us to him, and Tuchel and his background. We were thinking, "Yo, Tuchel could captain save a hole. We could go and get Dembele, fam." And then Rafinha from Leeds, I was a big fan of him at Leeds, bro. And obviously it was us, Tottenham and Arsenal. We were kind of the club that were kind of in the last stage of signing him. And I remember this so clearly. I was eating the rice and stew on the right side of our dining table, checking my phone, my iPhone SE, I believe, yeah, with my wired headphones connected. And I looked at my phone, David Ornstein, dagger, Rafinha, £60 million bid from Chelsea. I was like, oh my days, the guy that I rate so highly, we're going to get him. And I remember that summer at school, fam, just looking at my phone and being like, oh my days, Rafinha. And yeah, we didn't get him, fam. And it was peak. It was really peak, that one. The way, and it was always like, okay, yeah, Barca, you know, we didn't agree personal terms. It was amateur hour from Brody. I can't lie, we didn't agree personal terms, the whole Barca thing, and they came in and swept him, and it was like, I mean, there was literally a week where like, we hadn't been officially like denied or officially like, okay, the deal is off, but it was like, we knew that he was just waiting for Barca, and we just like cucks sat there like Rafinha. Like, at the time we were coping by saying, okay, if we don't get Rafinha, we'll surely get Dembele, because they're not going to have Dembele and Rafinha, surely. Dembele signs a new contract. We're like, what the hell? You know, and we were fuming. I remember it. We were all fuming. And then Sterling is the attacker, and we were like, well, I think Sterling came in first, and then we were thinking, yeah. I remember people didn't combine the levels like Sterling, Havertz, Rafinha, thinking we like that kind of thing. I mean, look, that's a bit mad in 2026, but yeah. So that concluded that transfer window, and Nkunku was signed on a pre-agreement Cassidy, and then in that transfer window, from that transfer window to the January transfer window, which we're going to talk about because it was pretty much a transfer window in itself. Around that time, they started their Brighton obsession, right? Sacked Thomas Tuchel for Potter. Everyone knows the story. We did it. We brought in some of the Brighton coaching staff that still hits it, I believe, to this day. Ben Roberts and all these kind of men. And then we brought in Paul Winstanley, Sam Jewell, yeah, all these Brighton man, yeah. We brought them in, and Barley was coming out in an interview saying, oh, we think Brighton are one of the best run teams in the Premier League. What do you know about anything? Like, Brighton are one of the best teams in the Premier League? Really? So you bring in these Brighton, man, and you get Brighton results, rude boy, yeah? This is why we're in the situation you are. Get out of my football club. 2023, January, obviously this was a mad thing. Bowley kind of still in charge. Been Stanley, I think, and these man were kind of involved, Vivel and all these man. So this was a bit more of a guided kind of look at it into what was going to be the long-term project. Mudryk comes in, yeah? Mudryk, mad swoop, £100 million. We think we've got our left winger. We think we've got our replacement for Eden Hazard. Enzo Fernandez, off the back of the World Cup. You know, one of the, you know, the talk of the town, you know, that guy, you know, when there's a World Cup, there's a guy that you want after the World Cup finishes. Enzo Fernandez was that guy. We got him. We got Enzo Fernandez, and that was a signing and a half at the time. Benoit Badiashile was a decent signing. That season he looked very, very good. Since he's been quite crap, and I think he is crap. But at the time, 30 million, decent signing. Looked like 35 million for Noni Madueke. We thought at the time, you know, a bit of potential that could be a little thing. Gusto, I think, was on a pre-agreement because I think it was injuries to Reece James, and we knew Aspilicueta was leaving in the summer, so that was a good pre-agreement again. And at this time, we were quite happy. The summer wasn't the best, but we could kind of excuse her and be like, listen, they came in such weird circumstances that we can kind of allow them. And this January looked okay. You bring in Joao Felix on a loan. Great deal, great player. And then we're looking for midfield options. And this was kind of Tuchel's fault. He didn't really want to bring in a midfielder. We had a lot of injuries. And then we linked with Alvarez, from who I think was at West Ham most recently. He may still be there. I don't know if he is. But he was at Ajax at the time. We ended up getting Zakaria on a loan. And then Brighton, their session continues with the likes of Fallows, and they ended up with this. So they assembled their leadership team pretty much a few months after this. Vivel joined and then left. We still don't really know why. Maybe he wasn't on board with the whole idea and the direction in which we were going, which is where we are now. And he's gone to Manchester United, and he's actually recruiting well. It looks like at Manchester United they're doing well. They're recruiting well over there. And then yeah, after a really, really bad season, we go to 2023 summer and we have heavy sales. Good sales at that, and that's something that even new ownership, old ownership, we've always been good at getting sales. Kai Havertz, we got him. Mount, Went, Kova, etc. All of these kind of guys. And at this time, the kind of young G obsession with getting young Gs in it had started. Omari, Kellyman, Santos, Angelo, David Fofana, Petrovic, and all these kind of guys. And yeah, this whole getting young guys in, and Cassidy was the year before. We get this young project. It was like at the time we were rebuilding, so it kind of made sense. But you know, the plan. My problem is, and I've written it down. My biggest issue is the planning. You know, guys like Carney, all these young teams we brought in. We brought in a lot of talented players. Santos is still here. Omari, talented player. Angelo, but there wasn't a plan with these guys. You know, even Kendry Payas, even to this day. Kenda we've bought, Satpaya we've bought, Omega we've bought. The thing is, you can buy all the good young talents you want in the world for the future and say, yes, it's not for first team, but it's for future. But it's like, I think getting Strasbourg was a good cue for the football club because it could help bridge this gap. But it was like, what's the plan with these guys? Even Guillou and the like that we're going to talk about in a second for the transfer window after. What is the plan for these guys? They brought them in, and the likes of Omari, Angelo, David Fofana, who's still here, but he's pretty much been binned and moved away from the project. Noni left for the same thing. He was brought in as like one of the faces of the project. A couple of years later, you're out of the project because we signed some new guy. Every 2 years, there's this turnover of the project is replaced by a new kind of idea, a new way that we're going to run the project. That was my issue with it. And in that summer, we flopped Elise, we flopped Shirky, we flopped Barkala, which was mad. But that summer, we brought in Cole Palmer, the best signing of Clear Lake so far, one of the best at least. Axel Dizazi, less said about that, the better. Nico Jackson, I think for the value for money, the scouting, good signing. Romeo, and then this is where it gets mad. 6 months after signing Enzo Fernandez, 6 months after signing Mikhailo Mudryk, Benoit, who looked like a good signing at the time. Gusto came in, obviously, from his pre-agreement. Noni was there. You bring in Romeo Lavia for 60 million, you take him off Liverpool after taking Moises Caicedo, one of the biggest transfer sagas of the summer. The Arsenal talks, even City talks, Liverpool talks. You go and get him. That was huge for the project to get Caicedo and Lavia, and they're still franchise players for us now. And if we do anything going forward, they're going to be huge in a part played in what we do and what we did. We brought in Leslie Gochukwu as well, who I think was a good signing. Again, he's another one, good talented young player, but you had no plan for him. You had no plan for him, and that's why he's at Burnley now, and he's not part of the project. And yes, we're making money on these guys, and that's why people get the illusion. I don't think it's actually this is the case, but they get the illusion that it's like, or they just want to trade, or they just want to get young guys and make profit. I don't believe it's that. I think they bring these guys thinking, yeah, these are good players for the future. They're scouting, and then I just think that I think they get young players because I think they want to get them on their first contract so they can pay them low wages and they can give them bonuses, and they want to get the guys. They want to remove the middleman, and a lot of football teams are doing it now. They want to remove the middleman. They want to remove getting Cucurella off Brighton. They want to get him off Getafe, or they want to get him before. And the thing is with that, ideally it makes sense. And at the time, it was a lot of people like, oh, why are we having to pay Brighton 100 million for this guy when we could have got him, But it's like, say like Manchester United, they were linked with Caicedo before. The first time I ever heard of Caicedo was when he was linked with Manchester United before he went to Brighton. And imagine they brought Caicedo in then, they probably wouldn't have become the player he's come, because you need to go to a club like Brighton, learn your trade in the league, and then go make your big move. It's not good for the football clubs in terms of you have to pay more money, so they're like, oh, why don't we just get him beforehand? That's their aim, but that doesn't work, and it hasn't worked, and that's why the likes of all the guys we're talking about that they brought in, they ended up just not being in a project a couple of years later. We're bringing in guys before the Gittins, even it's still happening to this day. You're bringing in guys before they earn the right to move to your football club. So you've got learner driver manager, you've got learner driver sporting directors who've not got good CVs. You've got a learner driver players. You're not going to do anything with that team. That's why we're 4 years in, 1.5 billion plus spent, and we've not achieved nothing. This is the reason why. To move on to the 2024 summer. I'm going to make an over point of this, the trend of what happens from these summers as years go on. But Neto, Felix we signed, we bring him back. That was a good gas signing. Neto was a gas signing, but we had to bring in Neto because we flopped Elise. We flopped Osimhen in this summer as well, and we didn't even get a single striker in, right? Felix came in. KDH was a bit of a weird one because again, it's the planning. Carney Chukwuemeka, we bought and put him on 100k, and then we're getting Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. Why? Kieran Dewsbury-Hall's a good player. I really like him still to this day. I liked him at the time. I liked the signing. I thought he was going to play a lot more. But what was the plan with him? That's my thing. Jensen came in. I mean, he's not very good. Kellyman. I mean, what the hell was going on there? Another one. We flopped the John Duran signing. 19 million on Amari Kellerman. Like, it was just weird. Like, it's dodgy stuff that they Penders, and again, another Penders and Anselmino, good players for the future. They're going to be key guys for the project going forward. They are good players, but I worry that we're going to bring in Penders next year, and he's going to challenge for and Rosenior's going to make him the number one halfway through the season, and he's going to start dying, and then all of a sudden we're going to have to sell him. And so we know the same. These guys are not ready, and if we bring these guys in and we're going to start playing with them, then we're not going to do nothing. It's the planning that's the issue for me, and that's the overall point that I'm going to make in 1 sec. The likes of Vega, we wanted a left back, left side centre back, so somebody could play left back and left side centre back. I wanted Nkapia, he's now at Arsenal, he looks like a good player. I knew he was a good player. Calafiori, I really wanted him. But Vega, for me, as soon as we signed him, I watched some YouTube content. I was like, yo, this guy's technically good. This guy's good. I was a big fan of him. He came in, I was still weird to this day. Even the summer after that, last summer, I was like, even January, I was like, why are we not bringing this guy back? Because he's good at football. He ended up at Villa. I don't know what's wrong with him as an individual. We give him a chance to come in from Basel, and then in 6 months he's complaining about, rare, man's not played enough minutes, blood. I want to get into the Portugal team. It's like, brother, you wouldn't have even been on their radar, fam, if you didn't come to us. So, weird. But Vega came and he went. That was a bit of a shame for me. Caleb Wiley, Mark Guy. Why? I mean, what was the plan with Mark Guy? I mean, next summer, we brought in Dustin Sakpayev, Omega, Delap, Joao Pedro. What was the plan with Mark Guy? When they signed this guy, was it just like, oh, he's good, get him? What was the plan with Mark Guy? Why did you sign him? What did you see? What did you think, okay, this is what's going to happen, and this is what the future is with Mark Guy if we decide to sign him? I don't think they had one. Sancho on a loan. I thought that was a good sign at the time. And then in the year's time, you're paying Manchester United to loan him back because you want to get someone else. It's so volatile. Tosin Adarabioyo, I thought that was a good sign at the time. He's not good, unfortunately. The idea of Tosin is better than Tosin himself. And in that summer, Esteban Paez were signed. Maresca as well as a manager. I thought that was a good manager. And that season, I knew we were going to have a good season that year because I wasn't the happiest with the transfer window, but I knew we'd stumbled across a good manager. Obviously, at the time, we didn't even talk about Pochettino. I mean, he should have never been appointed in the first place, and then they sacked him, which was a brave decision, and it was a good decision. Bringing Maresca, that was a good decision. And then, we move into, obviously, that season goes 2 trophies, top 4, and that was a real, the season where the project was finally underway. And this is the depressing one, 2025 summer. As I said, the project felt like it was finally underway, and they just went and ruined it. Bro. But 2 trophies, top 4. We were like, yo, people were thinking protecting us on the top 3, top 2. People were saying we might even win the bloody league. You know, we looked like we maybe could do something, but that window was an absolute like disgrace, man. The sales, again, this points out, it's almost as if every summer they're kind of admitting their mistakes with loaning someone out and then bringing them back. Telling people a year after you bought them or 2 years after you bought them. Noni went. Felix went a year after. Petrovic left 2 years after. Leslie left 2 years after. KDH left a year after. Vega a year after. Carney 3 years after. Nico, what, 1 year after? No, 2 years of Nico. Amogu, in for 6 months, sold 6 months later. You know, in 2 years, all of these guys left. Like, the allocation of resources is mad. You're spending loads of money on these guys, and then in a couple of years they're gone. And yes, they're making good money back on them, but this revolving door of players, managers. It's like, what are you gonna build with that? And it's confusing what they think they're doing. The ins that year, Joao Pedro, brilliant signing, absolutely. And you know what? This is why we're going to talk about this in a second, but I think it's overdone how much Chelsea is a youth project. We do sign a lot of youth project players, but we do still sign the Premier League players that the likes of the Netos and stuff. Joao Pedro came in, Jamie Bino Gittins. That saga was a disgrace. They were talking about, we want to pay 35 million, but they ended up paying 55 million Great British pounds for someone that hadn't even had a great breakout season in the Bundesliga and was being benched for Borussia Dortmund. Right? Too early. We brought him in too early. Yeah, we should have monitored him, and then next year we should have gone for him. 49, Alejandro Garnacho. Win Stanley's love child. Win Stanley's project signing. 40 million. You didn't get me Javi Simmons, and then the day before you got me Garnacho. That was part of that window, a big part of it. But then Javi Simmons and bringing in Buonanotte, who 6 months later left again, admitting their mistakes. You know, Bruno, I had to leave, and we were left with no 10. Yeah? Hato came in, I thought that was a decent signing, but he's a good player, but profile-wise, he's kind of developing into this attacking kind of left-back, but we could have done better profile-wise, but I'm happy with Hato. Liam Delap, oh my God. Of all the strikers, they bottled Ekitike. Ozyman, you could have got him. Isaac was on that market. Maybe, I don't know, Cunha and Bembos went on the market at this time. Ivan Toney. You brought in Liam Delap. Like, again, getting guys too early when they're not ready and fast-tracking them, expecting them to be 17 with 19 years experience. Where are you going to get with that? That's why we're in the position that we are today. Asugo, obviously, we've not even talked about academy guys. They brought in Josh Achampong. They brought, and it doesn't seem like they have a plan for him. They've not learned him out why. They don't have a plan for him, you know, in terms of integrating him into the squad. Tyreek George came in and he had to go. Gilchrist was the same. They came and gave him a new contract. And then where's Gilchrist now? Is he even still at the club? Who knows? Asugo came in. I think that was a good signing. And as I said, Bruno came in and Bruno went. So just a weird summer transfer window, and it was so bad. It starts back, and we're probably not even going to finish in the top 5. We sacked Maresca because he wanted to send him back, and they didn't give it him. No Xavi in the window as well. Just an absolute disaster, and that really set the club back. I feel like we were finding the directors weren't perfect, but we were finding a bit of a rhythm, and they just really went full like hipster kind of football manager crap window, and it was really bad. And we're gonna need better, and I need them out. I need the directors out, and this is the overall point that I want to make. The idea isn't bad. The model and all this kind of thing, it's not the best, but I understand why they're doing it. I think off the pitch there's financial issues and all these kind of things. So I understand in a sense why they're doing it, but the whole thing with the manager for me, like we're losing out on top managers because of Iqbali's ego, pretty much, and he doesn't want to work with guys that will tell him, yo, big man, like, I think you should do this, which is a shame. So it's the reason that we sacked Maresca, a guy who did well for us, and we've got Liam Rosenior in charge. Liam was sacked, but it might be that soon. You know, it's peak, and it's quite infuriating. I feel just defeated at the minute. You know, the briefs, the way they go about things, arrogance. There's no communication. I wrote that down. You know, no communication. We've never had an interview. They've never spoken to us. You know, face to face. You know, on camera and just talk to the fans. Or you know, they don't put many statements out. Other than like the first one that they put up when they first came in, there's no communication. They just see us as, you know, that board of director. They just see us as kind of fickle fans. They don't know what they're on about. The whole football world, Gary Neville, all these pundits, they don't know what they're on about. We know what we're on about. No one else, knows what they're on about. It's just us, which is just a crazy mentality to have. Looking forward, I'm hoping for change. And as I said, I think that no top four and unrest and players leaving and all of this, and the fans are really on their neck now. I think, especially investors, if you're not in the Champions League and we're in financial pressure, I think investors' pressure, shareholders' pressure, that could force the directors out. I think they really can go. I think they really can go if the season goes bad enough. And I think, see, not having the Champions League, if we don't win the FA Cup, if we don't get, and that's why I genuinely don't want us to get in the top five. I honestly don't want us to get any Europe. I'd like to see us in the Europa League, but I want us to fail. But then they'll come up with a spin of, but this is that, it was someone else's fault. It's just, but we see the directors out, and we've got to look forward to the future and hope that they change. And this is how have ruined Chelsea Football Club so far. But let's hope they don't ruin it further. And let's hope that they change in the future. Tennis Talks people, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Love.